What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So if you've been holding off on buying a new iPhone the last few years, I think the iPhone 15 is finally the one worth upgrading to. The previous couple of iPhones have honestly been lackluster, to say the least. Last year's iPhone 14 was especially disappointing. I mean, Apple didn't change hardly anything on that phone, so I don't blame you if you skipped it. I gave it a pretty harsh review myself. But this year's iPhone 15 is actually a pretty significant upgrade in more ways than one. It's sort of a catch-up year, with some pro iPhone features coming to this regular iPhone, like the dynamic island notch and the 48 megapixel camera lens. Apple actually upgraded the processor too, so they can say the phone is faster and more powerful, unlike last year. And it's also a major transition year for the entire iPhone lineup with the death of the Lightning port. That may or may not be a positive depending on how invested you currently are with USB-C, but overall, on just the sheer number of changes, this iPhone 15 is finally different enough to where it does feel like a major upgrade. Now, at a glance, arguably the iPhone 15 doesn't look all that different, I'll give you that, but I do think it's different enough that you can at least tell it's an iPhone 15 this year. Some people might even mistake it for a Pro iPhone actually, because essentially Apple just brought the design and finish from the Pro iPhones to this regular one, so that's kind of cool. The back is now a frosted glass, which is obviously what we've had on the Pro iPhones for years. You don't get any fancy finish on the frame though, that's still just aluminum. And yeah, the color choices on this year's iPhones are also kind of bland. I mean, this pastel pink is like the brightest shade of the bunch. The blue iPhone almost looks white. And I say this all the time, but it's totally true. Half the reason people get a new iPhone is because there's usually a fun, funky new color, something obvious that they can show off. This year, the color selections are as bland and boring as they've ever been. Apple also changed the dimensions on the iPhone 15 just enough to where, unfortunately, you'll likely have to get a brand new case for this new phone too. I feel like they do that on purpose. The edges are slightly more curvy and contoured than before. Last year we had the super sharp edge. You can feel the difference in your hand actually. The phone is a little more comfortable, but those minor millimeters of a difference mean especially the slim fit cases likely won't be compatible. The other sort of design change, if you can call it that, with the iPhone 15 this year is that dynamic island notch up at the top. As is often the case, this feature originally launched on the Pro iPhones, and now this year Apple brought it to the regular iPhone. And to be honest, as an iPhone 14 Pro user myself, I just never found the dynamic island that useful. As a notification widget, it was sometimes a less intrusive way to deliver information, but not every notification is shown in the dynamic island. As a sort of quasi-multitasking widget where it shows media that's playing or a timer or directions from Apple Maps, I also never felt that it was all that useful. More often than not, I would maybe pause my music, but I would more frequently just tap the notch area to jump back into the app that was playing. And that's like an additional way to do something that already has 2 or 3 ways to do the same thing. Most importantly though, the dynamic island isn't a feature for every app. Certainly not every third-party app, but not even all of Apple's own default apps utilize the dynamic island. And that, I think, is because there just aren't all that many use cases for it. I hope that with this feature on the regular iPhone now, more app developers will be willing to get creative with it and figure out ways to make it useful, but I feel like before long, the dynamic island may just end up in the Apple graveyard with the likes of 3D Touch. By the way, you might have noticed that VPN logo there. To keep my personal information safe, I've been utilizing VPN Unlimited, one of 5 cybersecurity apps you get with Keep Solid's Mono Defense bundle, this video's sponsor. Mono Defense is one of the most comprehensive cybersecurity setups available, and it's cheaper than your monthly Netflix subscription. The Mono Defense apps can be installed on up to 5 different devices. VPN Unlimited is your first line of defense for staying safe on public and at-home Wi-Fi networks. With 256-bit AES encryption, VPN Unlimited makes it almost impossible for anyone to try and steal passwords, credit cards, or other sensitive data via Wi-Fi. Passwarden allows you to store, manage, and autofill account email and passwords, credit card numbers, ID cards, and more. It can generate super secure passwords for you, let you know when one of your own might be compromised, and And with duress mode, you can further hide your most sensitive information in a separate vault with a separate password to give yourself one more layer of protection if you're ever in a situation where officials or law enforcement demand access. You can block malware and filter malicious traffic in real time with DNS firewall, access and stream all the major streaming services anywhere in the world with smart DNS, and you can further protect your online accounts with Authenticator, a 2FA tool that prompts you with a uniquely generated code to serve as one more login security check. Keep Solid's Monodefense bundle is available for $11.99 a month, and they even offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Check out Monodefense at the link down below. So let's talk a little more about the whole USB-C thing, because honestly, out of everything that's changed with the new iPhones this year, this is the most significant. Apple killed off the Lightning port in favor of USB-C, a change in ports we haven't seen since the iPhone 5 more than 10 years ago. On the one hand, the change affects everything from the cables you have in your home to perhaps the accessories that are installed in your car. And if you aren't all that invested into USB-C, maybe you have an older iPhone and a set of AirPods as your only gadgets, then that means you'll be shopping for a bunch of new things. But USB-C isn't a new connector type, and it's not even proprietary to Apple. So that makes things a heck of a lot easier. There's already a billion different USB-C cables on the market, and they'll all work with the iPhone now. You can borrow your friend's Samsung cable if your phone dies during a night out, and you can buy any of those smartphone accessories you've seen that maybe have only been for other devices. In a sense, there's basically no such thing anymore as made for iPhone. There's no longer an iPhone version and an Android version of products, chargers, and accessories. And actually, to get you started with your USB-C journey, Apple included arguably one of the nicest cables in the box with the iPhone 15 this year. Sort of a sorry we changed this on you gift. But in the end, I actually think the pivot to USB-C is an overwhelmingly positive change. What's a little disappointing though is even though there's a new charge port, charging speeds didn't improve on the new iPhone. Apple hasn't improved charging speeds in years, actually, and they've never really emphasized it either. It's never been an iPhone feature to charge up quickly, and so many people still use like a 5-watt USB-A brick to charge their phone anyway, which is just so sad. Please stop doing that. If you want the fastest possible charge speeds, the current USB-C bricks will at least get you to 50% in about 30 minutes, but when Android phones juice up to 100% in less than 30 minutes, it's easy to get a little jealous. In fact, nothing with battery life really changed this year. Apple basically didn't mention better battery life on the new phones, and in my experience, the iPhone 15 lasts about as long as last year's iPhone 14 did. I personally feel like Apple is more concerned with optimization and battery health. People complaining about seeing 90% battery health after a year of use maybe motivated them to ensure the batteries themselves last longer in their lifetime versus lasting longer during daily use. But I still feel like battery tech as a whole and wired and wireless charging speeds could be better on the iPhone. Another pro feature this regular iPhone received this year is a brighter display. Now, I want to be perfectly clear here. The display on the iPhone 15 isn't any better. It's the same resolution, the same type of Super Retina XDR OLED panel, and the same refresh rate, 60 Hz. The only thing that's different is its peak brightness levels, 1000 nits user controlled and 2000 nits auto brightness. That's still a noticeable change though, especially where I live in Las Vegas. The iPhone has always felt dim outside in direct sunlight, so a brighter display is that sort of practical and useful change that you'd likely experience regularly in day-to-day use. But I know a ton of people will still criticize the fact that this is a 60 Hz display, and rightfully so. $200 Android phones have 90 and even 120 Hz high refresh rate screens, so the regular iPhone at $800 something having a 60 Hz screen is kind of a joke. And the argument can certainly be made that a lot of people still don't care or maybe wouldn't notice. But honestly, with so many high refresh rate smartphone, laptop, and even TV screens out there now, it's hard not to notice. The regular iPhone feels sort of choppy and jittery with its scrolling and other animations, and even non-techie folks have said that the Pro iPhones feel faster or look smoother, even if they don't fully understand why. I can understand why Apple is reluctant to add their Pro motion displays on these regular iPhones. It would really diminish the value of the Pro phones, but at some point, a high refresh rate screen should just be a standard feature on all smartphones. So one of the biggest disappointments on last year's iPhone 14 was the fact that Apple literally didn't improve the internals at all. They didn't put a new processor in. They didn't make the phone any faster or more powerful. It was a decision they had literally never made before. And I'm sure it yielded some awkward discussions between customers and employees. This year, the iPhone 15 did get a newer processor, the A16 Bionic chip, and while it's not as good as the A17 in the Pros, Apple has now set a precedent for differentiating the two iPhones on a performance basis, it's at least an upgrade. And I know it's really hard to discern any speed or performance difference on any iPhone year over year, but it's the principle of the thing. It's the fact that it's a new iPhone, so it shouldn't have last year's components. If it did, there'd be no reason to introduce a new phone. And I know some people may make that argument too, don't get me wrong. I actually think the bigger value proposition on iPhones still is just the software support. Apple launched iOS 17 for devices starting with the iPhone XR, which is great if you have any older iPhone. You get most of the new software features to make the phone feel new or at least current. But buying a new iPhone today means you'll get updates for at least 5 or 6 more years, and perhaps even longer. That, I think, is also one of the main reasons why people don't upgrade their devices as often anymore. And that could mean this iPhone 15, if you do choose to buy it, is the last phone you'll buy for like half a decade or more. Finally, if there has been but one thing Apple has changed consistently and relatively significantly year over year on every iPhone, it's the camera setup. And this year, the iPhone 15 once again has some new hardware and some new capabilities. The rear lens setup is now a 48 megapixel shooter, similar to what's on the Pro iPhones, with a 12 megapixel ultra wide by its side and a 12 megapixel selfie camera up front. Inside the camera app, there aren't any immediate feature add-ons. The quick select focal length change is only on the Pros. The crazy zoom is reserved for the Pro Max, though the 2x zoom on this regular iPhone 15 is arguably a little better this year. Most of the changes to the camera, what you'll actually experience, are apparent when you actually start snapping some pictures and videos. Across the board, the new 48 megapixel lens can capture a lot more detail in every shot, and the upgraded processor can utilize that detail and image information to process a better looking result visually. You can take advantage of 24 and 48 megapixel super high resolution image files, which take up a lot of space on your phone, but allow for some professional results that can be utilized on your favorite photo editing software. Low light and nighttime shooting is also improved. You should see even more detail in every shot with less noise. Portrait pics are improved across the board as well. It's the sort of universal camera improvements that allow Apple to say, yes, the camera is better. But I guess there maybe still isn't enough here to allow the regular iPhone to sit at the top of the camera leaderboards with the likes of the iPhone Pros, the Pixel, or the S23 Ultra. At the end of the day though, I'm still of the opinion that most people don't fully utilize all the camera stuff that these phones have. If you're just snapping a quick pic at the default settings, a lot of these things won't really matter. But your average everyday shots, even under the regular settings and shooting modes, will still look better. To me, the iPhone 15 is truly the first significant upgrade to the regular iPhones in a number of years, and I can honestly say that it's finally worth upgrading to. It's not the totally redesigned over-the-top iPhone that everyone will recognize as brand new, but with the addition of some Pro features, the USB-C port, and everything else, to me, this is the iPhone that's worth getting and keeping for years to come. But what do you guys think? Is the iPhone 15 worth it? Did you buy it? Are you getting one soon? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.